Axial. Marvel needs a street-level Avengers. Here at Screen Cross to say about this, and check this out.
The people need to be reminded that the city belongs to me.
Welcome back to Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. Marvel Cinematic Universe has been giving us a lot recently. Magic, the multiverse, time travel, space, cosmic gods, alien gods, actual gods, cameos, and a lot more. But do you know what is the one thing that's missing for me in the MCU right now? Crime.
What?
Yeah, just actual crime. As in people doing bad and illegal things on the street level. And the only way to stop those bad guys are crime fighters. Heroes who are not so overpowered that they can now only deal with the Avengers level threat, but rather street level heroes and vigilantes, fighting the endless war against crime, greed, and the darkest facets of human nature.
The disease. I'm the cure.
Heroes who are the only hope for the little guy. That's actually what I've been missing with the MCU Spider-Man. I love No Way Home, it's amazing, but after Spider-Man saved the universe, we really gotta get back to basics. Bring Marvel's friendly neighborhood hero back to the not-so-friendly neighborhood. Marvel recently announced the Daredevil Disney Plus show, and there's also an Echo spinoff in the works. But these are too few and far between, and many heroes who were crime fighters in the comics are transformed into super-powered superheroes in the MCU. So let's take a look at how Marvel can fix their much-needed street-level stories and add more crime fighters to the MCU.
Fighting the war on drugs. You can't even call it the war. Why not? Wars end.
But first, let's examine the problem Marvel has with adapting crime fighters. The most recent and obvious example is the translation of Moon Knight from comics to live action. Comics Moon Knight is as street level as you can get. He's a brutal and seriously messed up vigilante who primarily fights criminals. At times, Moon Knight deals with supernatural threats, but even those tend to be on a smaller scale. That allows Moon Knight's stories to remain dark, gritty, and grounded. He doesn't have a magical suit, and he has no powers given to him by a god.
I did not know that.
And yeah, Moon Knight is sort of like Batman, which is the same as saying that Homelander is like Superman.
Score how much we have in common. We don't have anything in common. Don't skip ahead.
If you know Moon Knight, then you know that the similarities between him and the Batman are extremely surface level. Moon Knight's vigilante actions make him into one of the most fascinating crime fighters in the comics. Yet, almost all these elements were completely changed for the MCU adaptation. The show itself was good. I enjoyed it a lot, and it got a lot of things right, like Mark's DID. However, we can't ignore the drastic changes the MCU made to Moon Knight. The character was refitted to fit into a supernatural direction. Marvel likely chose to make the change so that Moon Knight can join the Midnight Suns, a team of anti-heroes who deal with supernatural threats, something that we theorized on the channel a while back. And that's fine. It's their property, so Marvel can do whatever creative license they want to take with these characters. Though it becomes a problem if every crime fighter now has superpowers and deals with Avenger-level threats. What does that leave for the smaller scale underbelly? Because Marvel did the same thing with Shang-Chi, who is more of a street-level hero in the comics. Whereas in the movie, he has 10 magical rings and he saves the world from a kaiju.
We've got a freaking kaiju up in this.
There needs to be a clear distinction between what power levels heroes have and what type of enemies they can handle by themselves. Crime fighters like Spider-Man, Moon Knight, and Shang-Chi should not be facing the same threats as Thor, Doctor Strange, and Captain Marvel. If there's no difference, then why should the audience care? Almost every MCU movie since Black Widow dealt with a world-ending event, or it's about the multiverse. At certain points, it becomes way too repetitive and boring. If every hero saves the world, then this deflates any stakes. Street-level crime stories are a good way to put the stakes back on Earth. They allow for a smaller yet more personal story. And it's not like there can't be a high-stakes superhero story with a smaller scale threat. You know, like The Batman. A crime thriller where the hero fights regular criminals. And it works. So well.
I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
The dark setting, the crime noir story fits Batman like a glove. Batman is made to fight crime. The same with Daredevil, which stands out as one of the best shows Marvel has ever done. Not that every hero needs to be dark and serious, but there are plenty of MCU heroes that shine in that darkness. And let's be honest, there's always something slightly deeper and more complicated. There's more nuance to the stories where heroes must battle against human nature.
I think that this world, it needs men that are willing to make the hard call. Only I do the one thing that you can't. You hit them and they get back up. I hit them and they stay down.
Now, it doesn't mean that the other stories are bad, not at all. It's not mutually exclusive. We should still be getting heroes who deal with world-ending events, space, multiverse, and all the other big league stuff. The MCU can provide all types of flavors for us to enjoy. That's the magic of a cinematic universe. But if we examine all of the MCU movies and shows, it's hard to not notice how few of them deal with the smaller scale crime element. Daredevil, Punisher, and the other Netflix shows come to mind. Homecoming is one of the only movies that dealt with actual crime. I guess you can kind of count Ant-Man and the Wasp. I mean, the movie did include criminals, but just barely. Falcon and the Winter Soldier can also be considered a street-level form of crime from a certain point of view. They do fight some criminals and arms dealers and all of that. And we recently got Hawkeye dealing with some crime. But that's it for the most part. That's actually insane. I never realized just how little crime stories there are in the MCU. We need more.
Give me more!
And it's not like Marvel doesn't have the heroes to accomplish this. Echo is getting her own spin-off show, and hopefully her story will be crime-based. I hope we get more Hawkeye. Season 2 can be about Kate Bishop teaming up with Yelena Belova going against criminals. So I guess a second-generation Hawkeye and Black Widow.
Stop making me like you.
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
Though I see Yelena as more of an international spy, and she might be a much better fit in the upcoming Thunderbolts. Now, Daredevil recently came back into continuity, and he's getting his own show, so that's a good start. Now, I'm not totally sure what kind of Daredevil we're getting, and how much of the Netflix version will carry over to this new iteration.
Kill me now! God knows I want you, but you don't get to destroy who I am!
Meanwhile...
But I'm super happy that we are getting more Daredevil. And speaking of the Netflix era, I really hope they bring back John Barenthal as the Punisher. Shows like Moon Knight prove that Disney is willing to go in a more bloody and dark route, so maybe Punisher could work. I mean, it's John frickin' Barenthal. Use that guy as much as you can. I'm not so sure about some of the other Defenders, but hey, I'm all for a second chance. Even you, Iron Fist. Even you. Marvel, please reboot Iron Fist and do it right.
You're the dumbest Iron Fist yet.
Now, as far as Moon Knight and the Midnight Suns, those anti-heroes could still work on the street level. First of all, there's nothing that prohibits Moon Knight from fighting regular criminals in the future. Hear me out, Marvel. In Season 2, Mark and Steven have a falling out with Khonshu. They escape his control and they lose the magic suit and powers. And then, Moon Knight makes his own suit and gadgets and starts fighting crime like he does in the comics.
Problem solved.
But this could even work with a supernatural spin. Go back to the Blade trilogy. Those movies placed the vampire hunter on the street level. Vampires were treated basically like normal criminals who suck blood.
Suck.
The Midnight Suns don't necessarily have to fight an ending world threat. I think it would be far more interesting if the team faced supernatural villains who hide in the shadows. And of course, there's Spider-Man. After No Way Home, it looks like Spider-Man's going to go back to being a street-level hero. And that is great. Marvel needs to go back to basics in Spider-Man 4. And we need him to fight some criminals for a change. And if you want to hear about our crime-based Spider-Man 4 pitch, you can watch it right here. Also, Spider-Man is back to having a secret identity, and that is a very good thing. When it comes to crime-fighting heroes and vigilantes, it's important for them to hide their identities. And alter egos always create great stories for these heroes. The constant struggle between the hero's life and the normal life, always needing to keep their identity a secret, even from their loved ones.
This is my gift. My curse.
Spider-Man going back to the streets is a great way to explore how the MCU should go about this criminal underbelly. For the last few years, Peter was dealing with aliens and the multiverse. He was too busy to deal with crime in his neighborhood, and that neighborhood is no longer friendly. For the past few years, the majority of MCU heroes were dealing with these Earth-ending threats. This allowed regular criminals to operate more freely. This is something Daredevil did brilliantly in Season 1. The Battle of New York was a big deal. It changed the MCU fundamentally. That trickled down to the street level, with criminals like Wilson Fisk seizing the opportunity to capitalize on the fallout of the Battle of New York.
Every time one of these guys punches someone through a building, our margins go up 3%.
The Avengers are too big time to deal with small-time crooks, and that's why Hell's Kitchen needed Daredevil. And the same thing with Adrian Toomes. As Tony himself said,
Steady, Crockett, there are people who handle this sort of thing.
The Avengers?
No, just a little below their pay grade.
At this point, most superheroes are basically gods. They need villains that can challenge their overpowered abilities. They don't have time to fight regular criminals. I mean, what can a bank robber do against Thor? Shoot him with a gun? Better be a big-ass gun.
So that's what it does.
And honestly, heroes like Thor shouldn't be dealing with criminals. They are in a completely different league. And in truth, Thor, for example, has no idea how to deal with someone like the Kingpin. Thor's all about hammer smashes and lightning blasts. If he fights regular bad guys, he's gonna level the city. This is why the city needs heroes like Spider-Man and Daredevil. They can operate on the smaller scale. And you know what? I want the street-level villains to evolve. I think that this whole mob and street gangs thing is good, but criminals need to become more sophisticated.
Kate Bishop is guy, bro. Kate Bishop is not guy. Kate Bishop is guy in costume.
This town deserves a better class of criminal.
I hope to see a continuation of what we saw in Spider-Man Homecoming, and it's that street-level villains getting their hands on weapons and tech that were left behind from all the Avengers battles. This is something that we also saw in Hawkeye, where items from the Avengers compound are sold on the black market.
Quantum energy is the future. It's the next gold rush. I want in hope.
And don't forget about the snap and the blip. Marvel did not explore the ramifications in too much detail, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier established that people are suffering from this aftermath. There are countless people who lost their homes and who are now in limbo. People who lost their stuff, lost their jobs, their life savings, and more. This makes them the victims of choice for the bad guys who can use their desperation to scam them. And another thing, you know what I miss in superhero stories? Villains who are just in it for the money. Most villains have these really interesting and complicated motivations, but it's rarely just about getting rich. Greed is a very powerful and believable motivation. It's like the main reason why criminals choose a life of crime. Adrian Toomes was motivated by greed, and he's one of the best MCU villains. Michael Corleone, Tony Montana, Walter White, Tony Soprano, Stringer Bell, they're all some of the greatest fictional criminals, and they're all motivated by greed. You can't tell me that you can't create an amazing villain who just wants money.
Money, money, money.
And finally, like anything else in the MCU, we need a team up of crime-fighting heroes. I'm not sure if the MCU is going to resurrect the Defenders, but there's nothing stopping Marvel from creating a new Defenders team that has no ties to the Netflix version. Or it could be the Marvel Knights, and that would be awesome. So I think I made my case for why the MCU needs more crime-fighting heroes. And I don't think I need to sell anyone too much on this idea, because most fans want to see this, right?
Yeah, no shit!
Hopefully, this is the direction the MCU is heading in the coming years. So, what do you think about all this? What crime-fighting heroes do you hope to see in the MCU? Let me know in the comments below, or you can @me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, be sure to subscribe, strike that bell for alerts. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.
Subscribe, like this video every day, and see you next time.